So what is up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about a film I've seen a couple of times, but I believe it's a hell of a lot of fun and definitely one of the best horror comedies to come out in the last couple of years, and it's called Totally Killer. And what it is it's definitely a combination of Back to the Future and Scream, where you have this girl who has to go back in time and prevent the killings of this guy called the Sweet 16 Killer.
Mom, you know how hard this time of year is for us. Your friends were murdered 35 years ago. It's not 1987 anymore.
To its core, it's a horror comedy slasher whodunit, but it's a lot of fun. Because when you have this Gen Zer who's forced to go back in time, confront the 80s and the cultural divide between the two generations, you just get a lot of laughs that are pretty authentic and kind of pokes fun at how asinine both generations can be at times. That really is where this movie is the most fun and it's the most clever. I was able to rewatch this a second time with somebody who's a little bit older and they'd be called a boomer by definition. And you really get to see how the jokes land. And they thought this was pretty funny and accurate how the 80s actually played out. Because you're watching this girl, as I said, who's a Gen Zer. She's navigating the 80s, seeing how politically incorrect it was, the way they acted, how loose their protocols were, the way they bullied people. Not really poking fun at the 80s itself, but kind of highlighting how asinine both generations are, how overly progressive we've seemed to have gotten, and how lax the 80s were. So it pokes fun equally, and that's where I think it's the strongest. Both generations can have a lot of fun with the humor in this. And the big reason this all works when you're watching this is because the lead, played by Kiernan Shipka, I believe her name is, you might know her as Sabrina the Teenage Witch from the Netflix series. She plays Jamie, this girl who has to go back in time and prevent this string of murders for reasons that you'll find out throughout the movie. But when she goes there, she really sells you on the divide you're witnessing of the angsty teenager that goes back and just doesn't understand how different the culture was, that it was not so extreme as it is now. She's trying to kind of highlight to people what is so different, but nobody seemingly gives a shit because, as I said, they grew up in the 80s. It was a different time. That's how people acted. So you just get a lot of fun watching this character walk around the 80s and a lot of cultural references, a lot of fun music from the 80s. It just really feels like a blast from the past, and it captures that Back to the Future vibe mixed with Scream really well. I also really appreciated the lens through which this film is told when you have this main character who goes back in the past and she's hanging out with her parents and their friend group trying to prevent these killings that are going to happen. It's just a really cool contrast to see both the generational divide and also the way her parents are when they were teenagers as opposed to how she views them now. Because, you know, a lot of us see our parents in old age. They look like these losers. They were never cool. And it's funny because her parents are the popular kids. So she's getting to see them how they actually were when they were in their prime.
Oh my God, Mom. Fuck off and die. Jesus, Mom. Mamacita. Ay. Ay, ay, ay. Mamacita.
I just really appreciate seeing that lens because I think it would be kind of fun to get to go back for a day and see how my parents were, some of my friends and relatives before I got to meet them. But it's really hard to stick that balance of a horror comedy in which you have jokes and a slasher whodunit. It's very easy to go off the deep end one way or the other. Either the jokes aren't landing, you have a slasher whodunit you just don't care about because it's a completely hammed up comedy. I think this sticks it really well. And what I really appreciated is the way they treated the killer in this, because they make him feel pretty intimidating. There's some stakes to this film. He does kill, he kills brutally. When he's on screen, he racks up bodies. So when you see this guy, aside from the comedy, which I'd say about 80% of this film is, when he's on the screen, he's doing some real damage. I think the kills, some of the scenes in this are pretty effective. And I also think the mask they have in this, as stupid as it looks, is pretty badass. I'm a really big fan of this recent trend in horror where we're taking some of these lesser serious films and we're kind of making hodgepodge meshes out of them with these horror films, making these really unique concepts. We had it with Happy Death Day mixing Groundhog's Day, Freaky mixing Freaky Friday, and then we have this movie which is blending Back to the Future. I just really like that. I think it adds a wrinkle and a layer to some of these slashers and horror comedies. When you start discussing the actual violence and kills of this film, it is fairly violent sometimes in the way he's killing people, but it's not over the top gory. So if you're somebody who's worried about that, don't be. If you think the premise sounds interesting, it's really not inaccessible to anybody. I think anybody can tolerate the kills and gore in this. With that being said, there is one kill sequence in particular that is one of the best and one of my favorite kill sequences to a soundtrack in quite some time. There's this kill sequence that takes place at a cabin where you're following this guy and he's in a fight with some of these teenagers, and it takes place to an 80s soundtrack. Let the music play, both in the lyrics of the song and the way it fits. I absolutely love the scene. I think it's pretty genius in what the words are saying to the song. It is one of my favorite and most fun sequences in a long time in horror. I also would say the ending of this is satisfying enough. I actually enjoyed the whodunit for the most part. I thought the time traveling they wrap up is done pretty well. Again, there will always be flaws in time travel movies. This movie even pokes fun at that concept, but I thought the ending is good enough, and I think the payoff is worth sticking around for. But in the end, guys, I just wanted to put some of you guys onto this if you've never seen it, maybe if you're looking for a horror comedy that I think is highly effective. If you've never seen it, it's called Totally Killer on Amazon Prime. I really enjoy this film. I think both generations can have a lot of fun with the fun it's poking. Talking about an asinine premise of time travel, a slasher whodunit. If you're looking for something interesting, unique, and fun you've never heard of or seen of this, I recommend it. I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray. So if any of you guys seen Totally Killer, if you have, comment down below. Let me know what you thought of it, or let me know what your favorite horror comedy that has come out recently is. As always, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? I do it all on this channel. New releases, scary stuff, tier lists, all of it. Join me down below. I'd love to talk to you in the comments. That's all I got in this video. Peace!